Oh, good. She's joining. I need this box to go away. Okay. So, as we look at taming your schedule to tame your life, I'll get back. Here we go. There we go. Okay. Getting your calendar to work for you and within the concept of work-life balance. Okay. And really, there's no such thing as work-life. I love this quote, and this is from the Power of Self-Work that I do with executive females that that my cousin actually does. I'm part of that program that she is in charge of. There's no such thing as work-life balance. There are work-life choices, and you make them, and they have consequences. Okay. And I want you to think about that concept. And I love this quote. You can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. Okay. So you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. And that's a really important concept of the trade-offs that we're going to think about making and how we're going to handle that as we go forward. I want you where'd it go? This little boxes, I may have to minimize this. Things to think, okay? Exhaustion is not sexy, okay? There's like this whole like martyr thing with females. It's really annoying. And they say things like, oh man, it's just, I'm so tired, as if that's like a badge of honor. And that's part of our culture, that if you brag about how tired you are, that somehow it's kind of like self-deprecation, which I hate, right? It's like, oh, look how tired I am, as if that earns you a benefit to somehow. I want you guys to catch yourself doing that. Being exhausted and out of balance is not a respectable trait. Okay. And I think sometimes we say it in like work situations because it's like, oh, look how hard I'm working, look how hard I'm working, look how hard I'm working. And let's flip it to look how hard I'm succeeding rather than how hard I'm working. Do you guys understand that? And really that concept of busy versus productive are shockingly different ideas. So I want you guys, we're going to work on being productive, not just busy. Okay. Even with moms and this idea, I've never met someone who said their mother lived an unlived life who felt good about it. And I remember I was at gymnastics with a lady, a mom, and I said, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want your legacy to be? And she said, oh, I want my legacy to be her, talking about the little girl. And I said, wow, that's a lot of pressure to put on a 5-year-old. But so much of our culture has taught us, oh, if your life is about you, it's bad. And if your life is about your children or your job or whatever else, then you're a hero. But it's not working. 60% of females are on antidepressants. 60%. Okay? So something's off. Something's not working. I want you to think about being productive and on purpose, not busy and trying to live through other people. It's a huge part of what we talk about, even kids. Okay? And I want you to really think about this. When you think, oh, should I invest in myself? Should I do this? Should I make time for myself? If you cannot make yourself a priority, then why would anyone else make you a priority? We want to be in relationships where people make us a priority too. If you cannot make yourself a priority, why should anyone else make you a priority? I want to drive home that concept, because if the energy we send out is, I'm totally not worth it, I'm totally not a priority, I don't even make time for myself, why would anyone else make time for us? And it's not fair. I mean, part of, I use the word integrity a lot. Being in integrity to yourself is not, living in integrity is not saying, well, these are the rules for you and these are the rules for me. Toxic people do that all the time. We hate it. But then we subconsciously do some of that stuff like, well, it's good for you to make you a priority, but it's wrong for me to make me a priority. It's good for you to take care of yourself, but it's bad for me to take care of myself. Do you see the inauthenticity of that? It's not living in integrity. And everything I do, I never just like, okay, here's a calendar and balance this and balance that. It's always, okay, this is why we're doing this. This is why I chose this. This is why. And I want you to think about living in integrity to yourself. Okay. And this is about your balance. I'm going to show you guys my calendar. It would probably seem insane to most of you. And this is about you finding your balance. We're going to show you how to do that. There's not a perfect calendar for every single person. This is about you. That's why in the program, 31 Days to You, design a life you are excited about living. It's going to be different than what my life looks like and what Susie's life looks like and what Renee's looks like. It's just going to be different, which is okay. And I want you to think about the terms energy management versus time management. My sweet husband and I hung a light this morning, okay? I actually know how to do a bit of electrical engineering just to hang a light, nothing fancy by any means. So, we chose to do that instead of hiring it out, and he likes do-it-yourself projects and that kind of thing. It drained me so badly. And there's so many things in my life I just love to do, and I love to do, and I had a good attitude about it, right? But I don't want to create a lot of things in my life that do not bring energy to me, because there are productive, on purpose, things that help me, things that help others in my life that bring me energy rather than drain energy. And that's a whole section in the course, the Wonder Woman course. But as you think about your balance, your calendar, making yourself priority, not being exhausted, I do want you to start to think in terms of energy management, not just time management. And when you see my calendar, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, I also want to point out of thinking of toxic people like a disease. I'll move this so you can see this. Thinking of toxic people as a disease. Toxic people push us to the end of our rope, and then we behave badly, and then they say it was our fault for getting to the end of our rope. Okay? Any of you co-parenting, any of you with toxic parents, toxic family members, a toxic boss, I want you to hear me. You have got to treat the situation as if it is a disease. If you had diabetes or cancer, you would go to the doctor and take meds. If you have a toxic person in your life that you cannot fully remove yourself from, you are going to have to manage your emotions and manage your calendar and manage yourself and master yourself so you're not always at the end of your rope. Because if you are always at the end of your rope, the toxic person is going to push your buttons, push you to the edge, and something really bad is going to happen. And you guys know I'm telling the truth. And then they say, well, look, she's the crazy one. Well, look, you're the problem. Well, look. And you've probably not associated your calendar and your life and your scheduling and your self-care with that concept, but I want you to. Because if you are, the best time to make it, let's talk about, cheating, right? The best time to decide whether or not you're going to sleep with someone else is not after 5 vodka drinks in a hotel room, right? You're already at the end of your rope at that point. You're at the edge of the cliff and you're about to fall over. That's a bad place to make decisions from. If you're constantly tired, if you're constantly exhausted, if you're constantly unable to create a self-care situation where you can manage and create happiness for yourself, you will be at the end of your rope, and the toxic person will push you to the edge and call you crazy. Okay? I know this has happened to some of you. Okay? Toxic people are like having a disease. You have to go to the doctor and take your medicine so you don't live life at the end of your rope. I cut off the word rope. But you guys see the concept. You have to manage it. You have to manage it. And we think about it in terms of self-care. And a lot of times the makeup industry and spas and these people have taken over self-care. Oh, I'm getting a mani-pedi today. Self-care. Oh, I'm doing, guilt-free TV, self-care. Oh, I'm going to the mall with girlfriends. I'm retail shopping, self-care. And I want you, so if self-care, it's so much more than that. But if there's any hesitancy or block with you thinking about self-care, that's why I talked about the end of the rope comment. So if there's any block with you thinking about self-care, I want you to think about creating an emotional cushion for yourself. And that calendar and your life being an emotional cushion for yourself rather than self-care. Because self-care, it's okay if you don't have an issue with self-care, but you cannot live life at the end of your rope. You will have bleeding hands. You will be tired. You will be exhausted. You will be grumpy. Your children, your family member, your coworkers, your friends will remember you as grumpy if you were always at the end of your rope because you're fighting life, fighting boundaries, fighting a toxic person. So self-care is a whole lot more than a day at the spa. Self-care is about creating an emotional cushion for yourself so you don't fall off the cliff. And you have that emotional space to give to the things that are most important to you, which we're going to figure those out. So if you need to write yourself, many of you need to write yourself a permission note in regards to this concept. Dear wonderful, living life at the end of my rope makes me seem like I'm the crazy one and makes it seem like I can't keep it together. And if you can't keep it together professionally, or you can't keep it together personally, or you're, fussing at your children, that's being at the end of your rope. And then the toxic person sets you off because they're always pushing your buttons because that's what they do, which creates horrific life circumstances for yourself, which is probably not what you thought as you were going to see what the calendar thing is. But my big thing is why, right? And it's protecting you and making you toxic person proof. And if you're living life at the end of your rope because you can't manage your calendar, it's going to be difficult to become toxic person proof because it will be easier to push your buttons and call you crazy. Okay. So I vow to create an emotional cushion around myself so I don't put myself in a position to have someone else push my buttons in a way I could lose it. This will keep me safe from gaslighting and help me build wealth for myself so I can become toxic person proof. Okay. So you see why this is so important. Okay. If everybody will mute, I think Kira needs to mute. She just came in. Okay, and I want to give Marsha Clark and the work I've done with Power of Self full credit for this next session. This next section, I did not come up with this or create it in any way. Marsha did, so I want to give her full credit. And let's look at the big rock story, okay? A professor was lecturing and told his class, okay, it's time for a quiz. Reaching under the table, he pulled out a wide-mouthed gallon jar and set it on the table next to a platter covered with fist-sized rocks. How many of these rocks do you think we can get in the jar? He asked the audience. After the students made their guesses, the seminar leader said, okay, let's find out. He put one rock in the jar, then another, until no more rocks would fit. Then he asked, is the jar full? Everyone could see that not one more of the rocks would fit, so he said yes. Okay, so it's a professor. He's got fist-sized rocks, which are pretty big, and he said, okay, how many can fit in the jar? And then he put them in the jar, and the student said the jar was full. Okay, but then he says, not so fast. From under the table, he lifted out a bucket of gravel, which is obviously smaller than fist-sized rocks, which is kind of a tongue twister. He dumped the gravel in the jar and shook it. The gravel slid into all the little spaces left by the big rocks. Grinning, the seminar leader asked once more, is the jar full? A little wiser by now, the students responded, probably not. Good, the teacher said. Then he reached under the table to bring up a bucket of sand. He started dumping the sand in the jar. While the students watched, the sand filled in the little spaces left by the rocks and gravel. Once more, he looked at the class and they said, is it full? No, they said. Good, the seminar leader said, who then grabbed a pitcher of water and began to pour it into the jar. He got something like a quart of water into that jar before he said, Ladies and gentlemen, now the jar is full. Can anyone tell me the lesson you learned from this? What's the point? An eager participant spoke up and said, well, there are gaps in your schedule. And if you really work at it, you can always fit more into your life. No, the leader said, that's not the point. The point is, if I hadn't put the big rocks in first, I never would have gotten them in. So the leadership message of this is always put the big rocks first. Always put the things that are highest on your priority list first. Okay. You imagine if the professor had poured the water in first and then said, can we fit the rocks in? There wouldn't have been room. If he'd put the sand in first and then tried to fit the big rocks in, there wouldn't have been room. If he'd put the gravel in first and then tried to fit the big rocks in, it wouldn't have fit. But you have to make those big rocks a priority and the big things in your life a priority. And I'm curious that if someone looked at your calendar, what would they say you valued? What would they say your big rocks are? What would they say was most important to you? Because isn't that such a great way to judge people? And then I want to ask, is that who you want to be? Is that who you want to be? If someone looked at your calendar, who would they say you are? And is that who you want to be? I'm going to show you a couple. Yes, and it is recorded. So people can go back and look at this. I want to show you a couple of calendars of people. No, not that one first. This one, okay? This is a lady, an author that I am friends with, and she sent me her ideal calendar. Okay? When you look at this calendar, her ideal calendar, what would you say her priorities were? What would you say the most important things are to her? And she actually has a email response on her calendar so that when you email her, she says, I am only replying to emails on these blocks. So thank you for your patience as you allow me to make my priorities a priority. Okay. So, and if anybody wants to mark in the chat or mark, you know, unmute for a second and come out and say what you think her priorities are, that would absolutely be appropriate. When you see this calendar, what do you think her priorities are? Anybody want to comment on that? Yeah, Linda, I agree. It seems like very personal. Very, very personal stuff is important to her. Work does not seem to be a huge priority for her. At this time, her health seems to be a priority for her. I remember looking at this and I was like, whoa, this morning routine is probably not a shower because then she's running. So what is she doing for 2 hours in the morning? Is she meditating? Is she journaling? Like, what's happening in this morning routine? And then she's got time for yoga, 2 hours of running, and then an hour for yoga every day. I was like, whoa. I also, yeah, this is you could tell this is a real healing year for her. I think she had overworked in the past. She's very successful. I think she'd overworked in the past, and this is her year of calming down and peace, which is her priorities, her big rocks this year. Okay. Now, what is interesting, this woman is married. Would anyone have guessed that from here? It was interesting when I was like, oh, I wonder. Yeah, Linda said she loved this schedule. That was actually my first impression. I was kind of like, oh, I wonder what that relationship is like. Of course, judging on my work. And this personal and family stuff could include more time with her daughter, which you see her daughter is older. So she's basically just taking her to school. But anyway, you could see it would be very easy to judge what her big rocks are from this. Yeah, I would have guessed single too, which I found very interesting. Here is my ideal schedule. Is this the one? No. Okay, so I updated a little bit from this. So I actually have a week 1 and a week 2 because I have different schedule with my kids those days. What would you, and this is pretty true to form. It really is. I don't have everything written on my calendar like something, a reminder goes off and it says time to email, time to write, time to this. But this is pretty true to form. Ben gets one night during the week, whether Wednesday, Thursdays, usually when we don't have a Q&A or something. B and N are my babies. And, you could see on Mondays and Tuesdays when I pick them up from school, Mondays and Tuesdays are family nights for me and their errands and everything else like that. But then you guys know I work crazy hours, usually Wednesdays and Thursdays and weekends and whatnot when I don't have them, which you see the difference in my work schedule when I have the kids versus not having the kids. I had not been doing yoga at 5 a.m. Recently. But do you think from this list, it would be pretty easy to see what my big rocks are? You're welcome to comment it. I know it's pretty, I said this to a couple of private clients and they said, are you kidding? Is that really your schedule? I was like, no, well, yeah, it is. It is. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is balancing your week, not your day. Because if my Mondays and Tuesdays schedule, there is no way I could truly run a full business on this schedule on Mondays and Tuesdays. But my Wednesday and Thursday schedule end up being, many times 11, 12-hour work days. But it works for me. Remember I was talking about the balance? And what's a balance for one person is not a balance for another person. Thank you, Karen. I feel like my schedule is very balanced. I'm just really proud of it. But if you only looked at Wednesdays or Thursdays, I would feel like a horrible mom, right? What happened last night? Yep, work, all day. Ben and I went to dinner, and I went to my daughter's softball game. That's exactly what this day looked like. It looked exactly like it looks here. But, if I ran that schedule every day, I wouldn't feel like a good mom because my kids hardly got any time on Thursday. But when I think about the course of the week, they get tons of time. And doing this exercise really helped alleviate guilt for me. When I started really seeing how much deep time I had with the kids and had with Ben, and like how much face-to-face time they got with me not distracted, I was like, man, I got to get rid of any of that mom guilt because I'm killing it. Okay. Anyway, that's a pretty good estimate of my schedule. And depending on if I have the kids that weekend or not, you can see, I leave a little bit of time for work on the weekends I have my kids, but obviously a lot more the weekends I don't have my kids. That's my balance and feels balanced to me. I'm going to talk to you guys about how I came up with that. But when I look at that calendar and think, is this who I want to be? It really is. It really is who I want to be. It's really aligning with my values and my purpose. So here is what is called the 7 ports of life, which looks a lot better when it's not, there you go. The 7 ports of life, okay? So if you have this many hours a week, how much are you going to spend on sleep, work, family, social, spiritual, community, and self. Okay. And doing the current allocation of time versus the desired allocation of time. This was an example that Marcia provided with me. This was not my original one. And, you know, this person said that they were currently sleeping 420 hours this is a month, I think. I think this is by the month. However many, however many hours a month. And they wanted to do 440. So they started to slowly increase their hours of sleep by 15 minutes or 30. They wanted to look how drastically, because this is a corporate females training, so you could see how drastically they were working at this point 12 hours a day. And they wanted to get it down to 10 hours a day. They were wanting to change their big rocks. If you're working 12 hours a day, probably there's not a lot of other big rocks happening. Does that make any sense? You're welcome to ask questions about that. You're also welcome to screenshot this and create your own current allocation of life. Of course, you can have the recording and stuff. But as you start to think about yours and get really honest about what's actually happening and keep track of it for a couple weeks. And I did. I went through a calendar. It was one of the best decisions I ever made. Not only because it helped me, it really told me I was already acting in alignment with my integrity of who I wanted to be. And that's when it alleviated a lot of mom guilt for me, because it felt like, oh, I just feel like I'm working all the time. I work weekends, I work these nights. And it was like, oh, no, my kids are getting huge chunks of time that is not interrupted. Huge chunks of time. You may think, oh, work is getting huge chunks of time. Oh, my family or my spirituality is getting huge chunks of time. You know, this person wanted to increase their community involvement. They want to increase their self. So screenshot this, make your own little chart, and start to keep track of that. I don't have a time tracking suggestion. I went back and looked at my calendar and saw what was already on there, and then started to come up, and it did not take long. We're talking 20 minutes of deep work to do both, because it was pretty easy when you go back and look, because the first step is going back and looking at what you're already doing. So seeing if that aligned with, that's how I created this. I was like, okay, what am I already doing? What is it, you know, going back 2 or 3 weeks, it's like, okay, what was happening? What was happening? What was happening? And clarity is kind. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about. I want you to choose what your week looks like, but I want you to choose on dang purpose, not have it chosen for you. Okay? I want to get into that for sure, because it is a boundary issue, right? And I'll come back to this, don't worry. But I want you to choose it on purpose. And I'm going to talk about a couple of things within that. Oh, one of the things you did not see on my calendar that could go into spiritual or self, a very helpful concept for people is scheduling worry or scheduling sadness. If you are in the process of grieving, or you are early in the stages of this, or you find yourself, your mind being taken over with abstract thinking, you can put an allotment on Wednesdays at 4. I'm just going to give myself space and grace to be sad, or space and grace to worry. But if I'm sad at other times, or I'm worried at other times, I'm not talking about stuffing down your emotions. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about doing things on purpose and saying, oh, you know, I feel like it's, I'm just so, I feel like sad, I'm practicing sadness so often. I feel like I'm practicing sadness. I don't want to constantly practice sadness. So I want to have a time that I can practice sadness. and not stuff those emotions down, but I want to do it on purpose. I don't want sadness or worry to overtake my life. Okay. And that is one of the things on my calendar. This little happy. Okay. It was when I was dropping my kids off at school. And it was just like a happy podcast, or calling a friend and connecting with them on my Bluetooth, or just listening to music in the car that would put me in a good mood. And it's funny that I'm talking about scheduling. I was telling you about scheduling sadness, and I was scheduling happiness. But do you see? I'll be honest with you guys. Getting children to school is not the most peaceful. Getting kids ready for school and to school is not the most peaceful version of my life. Okay. So if I had put deep work right here and there was no buffer between how I wanted to focus in on my day and that deep work, if I was just like straight to email, straight to text, straight to this, straight to that, I would not show up for my work in the version of me that I wanted to. So I created this little buffer, and I give myself space and grace for that little buffer. I could have scheduled worry or sadness there, but a place to process without guilt. Oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. No, I shouldn't. Because think about if you had the phone call right here, you had a call with me, and I put your call, I put the Q&A right here, and I was already distracted from drop off. My daughter didn't like what she had on for school that morning and was mad at me because she didn't like what she had on for school. I'm just giving an example, you guys who have had, or a stressful work thing, whatever it is in your life that causes stress. And then you had something really, really important scheduled right after that was going to involve you deep thinking without distraction. Would that be a good strategy? Would you be able to show up as your best self? My guess is no. Okay. Tricks of the trade, right? It's probably funny. You're like, what in the world is happiness? You could schedule worry. You could schedule sadness if you need to. But I just want you to do it on purpose and give yourself grace and kindness. Don't schedule abstract thinking. If you want to ask yourself why in the world you're wasting time thinking about the past, or why in the world you're wasting time thinking about somebody who doesn't care about you. Why in the world you're wasting time allowing him to take rent in your head? Why in the world you're wasting time wondering why someone won't grow ears rather than realizing they don't have ears to hear? Okay, that is not what I would suggest. And the reason I'm able to keep that crazy calendar, and it does feel very balanced to me, but the reason I'm able to show up as my best self in those places is that I am not wasting time trying to solve the problem of toxic people all the time. It's like, oh, I had a situation in my life this week. I did the toxic people talk. You know, all these people in my, trying to get into the group, trying to reach out to messages. And it's like, oh, set a boundary, done, block, done. Okay. And if you are worrying about toxic people all the time and spending all your time and energy on toxic people, you are going to not have the energy to do all the things you want to do on purpose. There is no chance, because remember, energy management versus time management. Abstract thinking is an energy drain 100% of the time. Okay. Good boundaries mean good time management. When you say yes to someone else, you say no to yourself. Okay? There is not a person in the world that would look at my calendar and call me selfish. If you notice, I even had text written there for me to reach out to my friends, to reach out to clients who I need to take care of, to do a Facebook Live, to help someone, family and personal, make time. You know, this weekend that involves celebrating our neighbor's birthday and maybe going to my parents' barbecue cook-off thing, you know, going to my kids' game. It's not selfish, but there's definite boundaries around that. And there's time that I can help others. My cousin called me 3 times yesterday about a question she had. And I knew it was a toxic person question that I would need a lot of background on. And we'd already talked a couple times this week. I did not have the time or the emotional energy at that point to drop everything I was doing work-wise and deal with her situation. And I do not have guilt about that. I've already talked to her 1 or 2 times this week. I don't have guilt about not talking 4, 5, or 6. Okay. Now I want to say again, sleep is sexy. Sleep is self-care. I do not think you would respect me more if I bragged about how tired I was. I think that would probably, now that you know me a bit, it would probably be like, whoa, that's weird. Oh God, I'm just so tired, guys. Just so much to do, so much going on. I do have a lot going on, but I work on energy management, and that calendar and that balance feels like energy for me. And it allows me to show up for my 9 p.m. calls as well as my 9 a.m. calls on the days that that's appropriate. And I also want you to think in terms of rest versus distraction. There have been times in my life where you just thought, I just need to numb out on mindless TV for this evening because I cannot manage anything else. And that is okay. But overall, I want you to do things that provide you rest and bring you back to energy management, not just constantly distract you. Scrolling through social media and listening to political debates or wondering why your neighbor is voting for this person or that person, or why they had this mask debate, or CNN has the latest COVID scare, that is not energy management. Getting caught into, I have a coach right now and I really like him. And his social media, he is so controversial and so like, I just think, why are you doing this? You need to stay on brand. But I am not his mama. I am not his mama. I don't need to worry about him. It is a waste of my time to wonder what he's doing on his Facebook. I mean, I do think he's a person of integrity. He's not saying anything that's like crazy or anything like that would make me think I needed to set boundaries with him. But I just think, why is he doing that? But that is a waste of my time. That is a distraction from the things that are my big rocks. And many of you guys are spending lots of time worrying about what other people think on Facebook. It is a waste of your time. It is not helping with your energy management, and it is not rest. It is distraction. Scrolling through social media, for the most part, is a distraction rather than rest. If you just had a toxic person interaction and you need 15 minutes of distraction and that's a choice and you're doing it on purpose, have at it. You go, girl. If every night you're exhausted and then you spend 2 hours and think, what happened to that 2 hours? That is not rest. It is not purpose. It is being busy and not productive. Whatever you do it on purpose. I cannot, and make sure it's in alignment with your big rocks. Make sure. If someone saw me someone saw, what did I do Wednesday night? Oh, I worked. I had dinner with a friend, sushi. I worked a ton. And, Tuesday night, I totally hung out with my kids and didn't work at all. And I just think of each of those nights and I think, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I did that. They all looked different, but they were all in alignment with my big rocks. Making time for friends. Talking to clients. Doing Facebook Lives. Spending time with my kids. They are all in alignment with my big rocks. Do I watch TV sometimes more because Ben wants to than I want to? Yes. But it's on purpose. This is what he wants to do. If he wants me to sit here while he watches the ball game, okay, that's fine. It's on purpose. It's not, oh gosh, thank God I can numb out for a second. You are in stages that if you need to numb out, there are worse ways to numb out than an hour of social media, and that is okay. Just really think about who you want to be long term and start to build towards that. Also, you are not the solution to everyone else's problem. I told you a bit about my cousin. If you looked at the last month of how many times I've talked to my cousin, It would be very hard for you to think I was a jerk for not answering my phone yesterday. It's not bad. It's I'm not saying anything about her. I'm just talking about boundaries because I want you to see this. If this is your identity, you will never have enough time. This person, we all need a hand every once in a while. We all need a hand every once in a while. I speak to a friend or someone I'm cared about or connected with at least every other day. I love my friends. I love my friends. I'm super connected to my tribe. They've been with me through hell. I went to a birthday party on Sunday, making time for them, even though it wasn't convenient. But I have to have boundaries around that too, as do you. This cannot be your life. You will never have enough time. And one of my big rocks is helping people. That doesn't mean every time, there are people who have emergencies and I come to those, you guys know that. And then there are people, it's like, okay, I have to set boundaries around that. But if this is your identity, you will never have enough time because someone's always going to be wanting you to pull them out of a hole. There are people in your life who are looking to save themselves. Make those people a priority. There are people in life who are looking for you to save them so they can avoid doing their own work. Set boundaries around that. Or you will never have enough time on that calendar. Balance your week, not your day. We already talked about that quite a bit. And you see it takes out the guessing game and the ping pong match in your head. Should I this? Should I that? Should I this? Should I that? Because it's like, okay, Mondays and Tuesdays, I already know my kids win. They're already a priority. A couple nights a week I'm setting aside for Ben. We go on dates, usually one night through the weekend that I don't have the kids or more, and one just us, and then something with friends, and then something, just us for a chance to connect within the week. Maybe we're cooking at home, maybe not. But there's not a balance on Mondays and Tuesdays of, am I going to spend time with Ben or am I going to spend time with my kids or am I going to work? It's already decided. There's no back and forth in my head. It's on purpose. Gretchen Rubin, who wrote The Happiness Project, you guys hear me quote her a lot, and she has this idea of just do it, and she has a power hour. And this is a silly example, but I want you to imagine in the middle of the night and you have to pee, and you wake up and you have to pee. You just, put it off. Oh, I wish I didn't have to pee. Oh, I can't believe I have to get up. Oh, you can sit there for 30 minutes and battle whether or not you have to pee, or you can just get up and pee. You get to decide if you waste that 30 minutes or not. It doesn't change the outcome. There are things in your life. I'm horrible about going through mail. I hate it. There are bigger things in my life, like having to call a lawyer about things, or having to, my sweet husband is always putting off our taxes, and he even gets money back. I certainly don't, but it's like, why are you putting this off? Just do it. Just get it done. It's not gonna, get better because we put it off. And he even gets money back. I'm like, why are you putting off getting money back? But Gretchen Rubin talks about setting aside an hour a week to do all the stuff you don't want to do. Maybe it's calling a lawyer about finalizing divorce. Maybe it is working on your resume. That feels very scary. Maybe it is reaching out to protect yourself. Recently, me reaching out to a trademark lawyer. Okay, it's not like super fun. It's not bad. It's just gets easy to put off. Okay, and she also talks about doing things very quickly so they don't sit on your mental plate. Okay, so what that means is you could either you read an email, it's a quick response. You already know what you're going to respond. You either just do it then, or you can put it off. But if you put it off, it sits on your mental plate. I'm horrible to do this about library books, returning library books. My son's an avid reader, as am I. And it's like, oh, I need to return those library books. Oh, I need to return those library books. Oh, I need to return those library books. If I just return the dang books, which I tried to, if I just return the dang books, I don't have to think about it anymore. But you see the mental, it sits on you mentally when there's something you need to do that you put off. It doesn't go away because you put it off. It fights your energy management. I need to return library books today. My library fines are, one time I had $100 in library fines. I'm not lying. It's bad. I need to do better about my library fines. And sometimes the thing that you are putting off is probably the thing you need to focus on the most. Okay. Such as reaching out to the lawyer. Such as, setting that boundary with a friend. Such as starting exercising. Such as doing the work of the Wonder Woman program. Such as writing the book you've been meaning to. Such as making the phone call. So it's taking up an incredible amount of your emotional energy and that energy management, rather than if you just set aside that power hour and just, okay, I'm going to do it. Or I'm going to be sad Tuesday at 4. I'm going to worry Saturdays at 2. Not the whole week. I'm not going to let it take over the whole week. I'll give myself permission to start, and then I'll give myself permission to stop. You don't want to lose abstract energy because of things always playing in the background of your mind. Oh, I think that's it. One thing, there was a slide that I think I skipped over, talking about that energy playing in the background of your mind. Sleep is like turning your brain from a jungle to a garden. Okay. So it organizes your thoughts, organizes your memories, helps you remember what you need to hold on to, what you need to let go. We obviously cannot remember everything, like Sally wore a purple shirt to work on Thursday. So if you asked us Thursday night, hey, what color shirt did Sally wear? I don't think she wore a purple shirt. If you asked us 2 months later, very unlikely you could remember, because your brain turned the jungle of your day into a garden. This is important to remember. This is not important. This is worth it. This is not worth it. One of the reasons sleep is so important, because otherwise you feel like a jungle all the time, which is more likely to get to the end of your rope. So I do want to take you back to this. If you have not taken a screenshot of this, just go back and look at your calendar. Keep track of it for, go back and see what the last 2 weeks have looked like. You may be more proud and say that does align with my identity, or you may say, wow, I have so much distraction. I am not in alignment with my priorities at all. And when you saw my calendar, work, self, family, in differing order on differing days. Okay, those were my big rocks. All the rocks cannot be big. When I was doing the pageant, right? I was doing like private calls. I wasn't doing enrollment calls. Definitely seasons of my life I don't do enrollment calls. Well, I'm focusing on this now. You can do it all. You cannot do it all at the same time. And that's why I do love this. Allows you to think about balancing even the month. If you try to balance the day, you will feel like a failure every second. But if you stretch it out and balance your week and then balance your month, then you'll start to make some headway and see what those big rocks are. And I think it's Tony Robbins. He was probably quoting someone else when he said this. He said, we always overestimate what we can do in a day or a week and underestimate what we can do in a year or 10 years. And even as I was updating my bio and going through, finances are a great way to see what you're prioritizing. I spent 40% of my income last year on growth and coaching. 40%. Ben was, he was like, I can't believe you did this. I said, what else would I want to spend money on? This is like the best thing ever, you know? But I went back and I said, okay, because I worked with this person, this happened. Because I worked with this person, this happened. Because I worked with this person, this happened. So now when I redid my bio, it was like, whoa, this looks so much better than it did a year ago. Whoa, this looks so much better than it did a year ago. It was the big rocks of my of my priority list. Okay. It's a great way. Just do it on purpose. Yeah, that's because you asked about that time tracking activity, and it's like, well, I think about it in terms of energy management. It would be very hard for me guys to show up well for you if I felt like I was a crappy mom. That's a huge piece of my energy management, is setting aside that time. Could I make more money if more of that had enrollment calls and coaching calls? Sure. Would I be better long term? No, I would not. I would not, which would cost me long term and cost you long term and not be the right thing to do or in line with my integrity. And yeah, and if one of the things, your priority may need to be doing more things, creating, there's private clients I have, I say, I never want a week to pass that you do not talk to a human every day, that you are not pursuing a hobby every day, that you are not, you know, there's a lot of growth in that, in this thing, my calendar, a whole lot of, it's not mine. Oh, it didn't save. I did train that, you know, there's training. I don't really meditate. That's sometimes I do if I wake up early in the morning, but this would all be training. You know, different trainings that I would do. And that's a huge piece of the puzzle. So with, you know, with too much time on your hands, what are your goals? What are your big rocks? You get to choose. Spending 10 hours a day watching Bravo would not be what I would choose. I don't. That's actually linked to a ton of depression. It is a balance, because if you don't have enough on your calendar, that creates depression because you don't feel like you're living on purpose. And if you have too much on your calendar, you're living life at the end of your rope. Oh yeah, Karen, I got that you like this idea better, not your time tracking. No, I picked up on that. You know, Shane and Melissa can tell you, when I said I was going to do the pageant, they both went, how in the world are you going to fit in something else? Because you know, I'm finding emails, getting to this, doing this training, doing this. They see that calendar piece. This is how. This is how. Nearly everything I do is on purpose, even if it is wasting time resting, wasting time just playing with my kids, wasting time, you know, and I do the quotes. If anybody's not watching me, you know, I do those little like quotations, because of course it's not a waste. It's all on purpose. And if one of your goals is networking to date, networking to increase your social network, networking to create your business, whatever, stick it on the calendar. Make that a big rock. You're going to have different big rocks at different stages of your life. The book is going to have to be on a big rock. It's going to have to be one of the shifts I make. It's making more time for the book. So it's always going to change and always going to adapt, because remember when I said the term of balance is going to be different for everyone, and it's going to look different at different stages of your life. And it helps you become toxic person proof, because they say, huh, she knows exactly who she is. Yes, Sylvia, do that big rock resume thing. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you guys can do a power hour. Your brain is that way, Rebecca. Become a finisher. Practice finishing things. I remember having to do that, and I was just like, okay, my whole big rock right now is finishing things. And just, I'm a great starter. I'm pretty good at finishing things now. I have not historically been great at finishing things. And I remember different courses I was on and different things. And it's just like, okay, my goal is just to finish the things I start, just to finish the things I start. And that became my big rock. And the first priority is just to become a finisher. That feel good? Okay, my loves, I am going to hop on another call. And if you have any questions about this, post it in the group and I'll be happy to reintroduce this. This is just such an important part of happiness and having a life you're excited about living. Okay, so wish you all the best and we will chat soon.